right. This is the expose of the personal growth industry, how it really works, what's really going on behind the scenes. I'm joined today by my colleague, Aussie fucking Steve.
G'day.
This is Aussie Steve. He's called Steve, and can you guess where he's from? Yeah, he's an Aussie. So, Steve, you've been working with us for a little while. Do you want to sort of say like what you do in the company, and that will kind of place you, and then we'll get into sort of how things work in personal growth behind the scenes. So, yeah, what's been your journey?
And I started out as your student back in 2019, which was 4 years ago, and then happened to find myself in event management when the conference came around, the Embodiment Conference 2020. And
So we used to do live courses, training coaches throughout the body. You were on one of those.
yeah.
And then you just seemed like a good egg. So we said, do you want a job? And then everything went online, right?
Yeah, during COVID, it was just kind of like a whole heap of time to do stuff.
It was. So then you did a lot of small online events before the Embodiment Conference, right? But some of them were like 40, 50,000 people.
Yeah, we started out, it went from like 6,000 for the first one, and it suddenly jumped up by the third one to like 50,000 with the trauma event.
Yeah.
And then sort of floated around there, dropped down in the summer, which is a cycle we see.
Yeah.
Then the conference came along.
Yeah, for those who don't know, conference, 1,000 speakers, 500,000 people, biggest Zoom event potentially of all time. Not an official Guinness record because we didn't want to give them money, but we think it was a world record in that sense. And it sort of boosted the company up. All of a sudden, I became the director of an online learning company that all of a sudden had 25 staff from having like, a part-time PA or whatever, helper person. And then we did like a load of online courses. I guess we had been doing before COVID. So some of the online embodiment coach training we were doing was, we moved online, did courses on meditation, yoga related stuff. What else have we done in the last 3 years?
Marketing, relationships, trauma in several different forms.
Trauma in various forms, boundary stuff.
Yep.
All embodiment related, me teaching, but other teachers we kind of tried to bring in as well. And then eventually the company kind of, hit some hard times when people weren't enjoying Zoom so much. And now cut back to a much smaller company. You pretty much do all our online events, organise in-person events, which obviously are back. And then what else?
Various marketing, copywriting, sales pages, all that sort of stuff.
Great. So there's quite a bit. And now there's just like 6 of us, but we, I'd say, hit above our weight as a company in terms of the kind of size of it. Yeah. So what I wanted to do in this video is sort of give an insider view on the industry. Now, even that's kind of a horrid term. Like, we're both practitioners, right? Like, I did Aikido and meditation and all that. And what are your practices? What are some of the stuff you love to do? Just because I want to sort of make sure people get that we're not business people who do spiritual mindfulness work.
Making lots of money.
Yeah, we're people that love that work who have tried to run a business doing it. So what are some of the practices you like?
For me, long-term meditator was my original way in. And kind of vipassanarizing lots of movement stuff I did without knowing it was embodiment for a while. And then eventually getting into yoga, martial arts. Feldenkrais has been a recent love of mine. Breath work generally as well.
We meditate in the morning. Steve's staying at my house at the moment for a week or two before he gets married. So he's hanging out. And actually, that's one thing I'd say about our company. Everyone's nice, right? We like each other and people hang out together. And we, like you work with Leela a lot, who people would never meet because she runs the email list. And, we meditate together. We've got an ice bath planned, I think, for tomorrow.
Yeah, but mandatory ice bath while I'm here.
Mandatory ice bath, yeah. Homoerotic video, got to do it, got to be done. Okay, so it's kind of like where it started. We should break it down that there's different things people do in this industry. And again, I say like that because it is big business, right? Like, potentially, there's lots of sort of yoga teachers doing it, say, in England, part-time. There's people who are professionals, most of whom are struggling because they're rubbish at marketing, is what we've discovered. And then there's a few big companies. So there's people like Shift, Sounds True, Mind Valley. Not many more in the online space, maybe 2 or 3 more who are sort of big names. And those guys are running multi-million-pound businesses. And we were kind of in between, I would say. And we're almost in that, after the conference, we're kind of almost in that area of, the big boys, as it were. And now we're sort of in the middle with a few people, like few employees, and we're not quite in the territory I used to be in of like, solo guy on his laptop organizing retreats and trainings or weekly class or whatever. And I'm not sure, particularly the sort of upper end, the middle to upper end of that, I'm not sure people quite get how it really works, right? Like, and I get that, like, we have a list that's fairly big, and that's kind of a key asset for the company. So if I was to sell the company, that's what they'd ask. And people in this space who I talk to, like, I don't know, Fleet or Alex, like friends of mine who also run sort of
about similar size.
Medium-sized companies, right, those guys. Alex runs Trauma Super Conference, Fleet runs Best Year of Your Life and a couple of other things. Obviously, I'm not going to share like confidential conversations with those guys, but like, I think they wouldn't mind me saying that, like, how big is your list is kind of a benchmark for whether someone's at, I don't know, like I know a really cool, nice guy, conscious dance teacher who's got a list of 15,000, and he's pretty successful. He goes around doing workshops, and then I think Shift, probably something like 2 million. They'd be the upper end. Don't know about Mind Valley or Soundstream. I'm guessing 1.5, something like that. And the most we were ever at was 400,000. But then, like, most lists will go down unless you rejuvenate them somehow, usually through summits or events or Facebook ads. We did a lot.
And then sharing with other people as well, affiliate type things.
Yeah, so this is worth saying that anyone in the personal growth industry is pretty tied in with affiliate stuff. So what that is could either be like horse trading, you share our stuff, we share yours. And that can be done ethically. Like, we share Anthony Abbiano's stuff. I know him personally. He's got, similar size list, I think. And it's just someone we like, and we like their work, and they like our work, and there's trust, and we know each other. So it's sort of not that big a deal to like swap an email. But occasionally people don't get this, and they'll say, hey, can you just send an email out for me about something? Like, I get that request a lot. And nearly always the answer is no. Because A, I don't necessarily know them or their work, but B, like, that would cost me an unsubscribes, right? Like, I might lose 500 or 1,000 emails every time I send an email. The other way affiliates works is like a percentage of sales. So someone swaps with someone else because they're going to get a cut, right? So we would share, Trauma Super Conference or whatever. And again, it can be done with integrity. Alex does good events. We like his stuff. And in that, we get a cut of any sales that come through us afterwards. So let's say Alex does a free trauma conference, and then afterwards he sells the recordings, your classic model, and 10 people buy the recordings at $500, then we would get a percentage of that, $5,000. Now again, that can be done with integrity, but I think a lot of the time what's going on in the industry is a lot of people scratching each other's backs and not wanting to rock the apple cart and doing their mates favors. And there's a word for that: corruption. Like that is what's going on, and people know each other, right? Anything you want to say about the sort of affiliates thing? I know it's not generally your department.
I mean, my job when it comes to affiliates as well is often rewriting emails and seeing how well of a fit it is to our audience, and also whether there is actually stuff that's a fit that maybe isn't communicated well from the affiliates, because
some might be like more hippie or more scientific, or this. So you do have like a flavor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that flavor may or may not be a good fit.
Like, our audience won't go for super new age, and we get those, and we're like, well, actually, there is some good stuff here about resilience, but I'm going to rewrite this whole thing.
Or we might just say no to it because we go, like, it just doesn't make sense to our audience. So you're genuinely trying to give the audience something they would like, both for their sake, but also because if they hate it, they're going to unsubscribe from your list, and that's not great,
And there is something that's a sort of value there with affiliates as well, in that, on one side, it's like you're sharing cool stuff with your audience that can give them value. It's like Alex doing something on Trauma Super Conference, so we share that
conference. It's free. Why not?
So our people love that, and then, as you say as well, there might be a monetary thing that ends up paying off in it as well. So there's a couple things that you weigh up and see what is a fit and what helps out the business.
And I think everyone in the industry has a different line on that. Like, some people just don't care about the quality of what they're selling if they're making money. One of our competitors, I won't say who, literally does courses on luck and how to be luckier. I just think it's bollocks. Like, I'm just not ever going to do affiliate with them on that if they offered. To me, it's just like, what are you selling? And it is very interesting what sells, because there's certain topics. Trauma has been a big one the last few years. Like the trauma people have become rock stars, right? Like a lot of the trauma people that did the conference for free, now they wouldn't get out of bed for less than $10,000. It's become super politicized. We'll come back to that's a big part of the industry now, but it's also just become big business, particularly for trauma people, and a lot of it's kind of celebrity driven. Not like celebrity like your nan would know them, right?
Yeah.
But celebrity in our world.
Although in some cases, almost.
Almost in some
Right.
cases, like a few bit on the telly and stuff, but generally it's just they're a big name. And so everyone's trying to establish their own name and be with the big name. So you see this in like the podcast circuit. It's the same people in that circuit doing each other's podcasts, because as soon as someone sees like a big face, like I was on the Trigonometry podcast, great podcast, lovely guys, really well done, and I got say 50,000 views. Now they told me, like some of the people there said, this is one of the best podcasts we've ever seen. You're way better than all these famous guys we've had on. You know, they were genuinely glowing about the podcast. You know, the producer, you know, and I could see it was sincere. So they were like, great message, but I'm not known, or I'm not known in their world, right? Like I'm known in the embodiment world, which is kind of a smaller world. Whereas like someone who's like, I don't know, Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson in their world would be really famous, so we just get the clicks immediately, which means ad revenue for them. Right? And that's no disrespect to them, it's just an example. And the same thing with big courses in say trauma or meditation, which is another big one. Like the most famous people in meditation aren't the best teachers. They're just fucking not. Like most of them are either early adopters who sort of spent 6 months in Asia, and then because they're baby boomers, they were some of the first to come back and do it. Or they've just got well known one way or another. And sometimes quality rises to the top.
Like I wouldn't say it's always the case. There are
It's
some
not
very
always.
good.
There are some good people,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of great people who are either middling or just not even known at all. Right? Like if you were to say like your favorite meditation teachers is someone who's really meditated a lot, done multiple retreats for months at a time, you would name people, I don't know, you might name, I don't know, let's take Shinzen Young.
Yeah.
He's amazing, right? And he's sort of known, but he's not in the top tier. And that's as much to do with luck and marketing. It's more of those factors than quality in that case, right? Or even just that not everyone can recognize who's really good.
Yeah.
Like the average beginner might be a bit lost in Shinzen stuff, for example.
Yeah, and like you say, like we talk about this, the first, the biggest, the best, right? So sometimes the quality rises to the top. Sometimes
Best is a factor, right? Yeah. But just the first in, or they've got the biggest reach. Now, if there's very few sort of kingmakers, let's say the people at Mind Valley decide to make you famous, they can, right? And sometimes it's because it's someone's cousin. Sometimes because it's someone that they like. You know, I hear, for example, there's a major event in California that I won't name names where, you know, several people on the schedule have slept with the organizer, right? Like a casting couch kind of style. I won't name names because I haven't had that confirmed, but I wouldn't be surprised. And often there's a little bit of nepotism, that's sort of light nepotism. It's just like, oh, I know him, he's a friend. And actually, it's hard not to do that, isn't
like,
it? Like, we
we've still
find
done
it
it as
hard
well.
not
It's
to
like-
do that. Like, oh, we know that person, he used to train, I don't know, Matt, who we've both done martial arts with, and he's a really good guy, and we hang out with personally. You saw him a few days ago, right? Like, it's like, well, he just comes to mind when you have an event.
Yeah.
So what that means is a lot of networking, and some, particularly people in the States, have a huge advantage there, because it's just like, I'm just not hanging out in the States, right? Like there have been times
You
I've
go into
gone,
the same centres together, meditation
yeah, they
centres or
know each
whatever
other. They
else.
hang out at Spirit Rock. They know each other. You know, they're a stone's throw away from each other in Northern California. You know, you know, so for example, if you were to take all the top teachers, a load of them would be clustered on San Francisco. Now, is that because they're good? Yes, but it's also because they know each other. They do each other favors, and you know, there's a nepotism there. Where I think that gets dark, one is just understanding there's a bias, right? And it's the other way where it gets dark, I think, where it becomes a political outing of certain people. So I was kind of sort of suddenly had this big stage, which I created for myself with the Embodiment Conference. And there was some sense from the sort of baby boomer personal growth elite of, who are you? Who do you think you are? What are you doing here? There was some sense that I was. How did you get in the club? You know, and then the other thing that happens is that people are very politically aligned in a sort of far left American way most of the time, right?
Which then adds the it's not nepotism, but there's the other thing where there's an agenda to have particular people.
There's
on
an
particular
agenda.
things.
They're not getting the best people. They're getting either their mates who agree with them politically and not such and such who's been ousted. And we're not talking for being like neo-Nazi or something like that, right? People being ousted for just not towing the line 100%, or just being centrist, certainly by the values of other cultures. So there's a sort of cultural colonization homogeneity to it. And then the other one is just the woke thing that we've seen over the last few years has just become, and this is where you go, how much can we say? This is where we go, oh shit, we're being recorded. Right.
Any edits? Look for the
yeah.
cuts.
We go. All right, editor. 20 minutes in, because it's dangerous territory. And what essentially is happening there is massive racist discrimination, and in some cases sexist discrimination, but in the opposite way than people think is possible. Right. So it's like what you will see at an event will be, I don't know, Gabor Mate, Pete Levine, and someone half their age who's a black woman. Now, is she there entirely on her merit? Yeah? Maybe. But often what's going on is organisers go, listen, we can't have this look a certain way. Yeah? The optic will be bad. So what you've got is organisers who are terrified of having a website that's, say, 5 white men as the teachers. Even if they were the 5 best people, the 5 most qualified. Now, that might not make sense from the point of view of actually wanting people that your audience to connect with, and role modelling can be gendered and different things. But there's, like, for example, in the Embodiment Conference, we made huge efforts to make sure people from all different backgrounds were there. Like, huge outreach, like, we really weighed some efforts for it. And there ended up being, of the 1,000 speakers, we didn't know exactly because we didn't ask people, but it was something like 200 of the people there were not white people.
Yeah, it was estimated 20 to 25%.
20 to 25%, right? And we were making serious efforts, but it was still never enough, of course, for certain people.
And then, of course, there's the funny thing that's like, literally tracking that stuff and asking that stuff is historically asking people about races and backgrounds.
Did we count the Jews who were at the conference? Of course we didn't. You know what I mean? It's an outrageous thing to do. Or ask people if they were gay, stuff that's less easy to measure, right? Like, how many gay teachers were there at the conference? We don't know. We know we had a bunch of sessions on gay rights and gay issues, and we supported a gay charity, but we don't know because we didn't ask everyone in all the other kind of categories, as it were. What was very bizarre in that situation is we made like genuine efforts around it and had a whole track to do with trauma and social change where there was whole discussions about it. The main stage had a number of, different kind of speakers on.
And then not to mention as well, like within this space, like being in the personal growth or embodiment scene is very much an English speaker thing. And the conference made the effort of having, what was it, like 7 or 9
the languages was a big one.
That makes something more accessible than any of these other things, and cost a lot of fucking money. And yet
the market is 50% United States.
Yeah.
Right? That's 50% of the sales, at least, maybe more, from this whole industry globally. And no one really gives a shit about people that don't speak English. Like Germans who don't speak English. A lot of our audience, German.
Spanish, German.
Southern European.
Mandarin.
And then forget, we had people translate, the conference translated into Hindi, which immediately just made it accessible to, 500 million people? Huge number of people. Or there's no sense, for example, we work with Hungarians. And then no one gives a shit about them, right? Like, Hungarian representation is a thing, because everyone's using American models, which sees certain sections as important. And those sections are measured in a certain way, dictated in a certain way, right? And the other thing we saw was there was a sort of meanness around some of the sort of takedown stuff that happened to the conference, where we realised people weren't looking for the truth. Because if people were like genuinely, hey, we want to see more diversity and because we'd say, great, who have you got? Introduce us to someone. What's a session you'd like to see? What's a speaker you'd like to have on? We've already got these speakers, if there's anyone else you want. But they also would hide stuff. Like, the conference was led by me, Daniela, who's a bisexual woman.
Grew up in East Germany.
Who grew up
as
in
well,
East Germany, which is another thing that Americans don't understand, the East European thing. And Manal, who's Saudi Arabian. And literally the three of us made all decisions about finances, scheduling, and they would outvote me sometimes, right? So they had real power. This wasn't like a token thing. That they could genuinely say, no, we're not spending the money on that. Like, for example, the translation, we voted on that. And if I'd have been outvoted, then I wouldn't have got my way. And we saw that that was just hidden. Yeah. It just wasn't...
Which is ridiculous considering that literally what was being done is we're wiping these women out of existence.
It's a Mark's embodiment conference.
To make it about Mark when it's like, these people exist. What are you actually doing?
Right. So it's actually the kind of an awful sexism and racist kind of thing to do.
Yeah, it was actually more extreme.
But it was also just, that's where we realised, like, oh, this is malicious.
They don't actually care about
They don't care about the truth. The truth did not matter to those people. And still to this day, like 3 years later, there's still harm there. For example, like, I was at a meditation centre recently that I've been to for 15 years. And apparently the day after I left, there was discussion about, is Mark Welsh a racist around the lunch table? Because I left just before silence. I left a bit early. And I was like, I heard about that. And I went, God, do I want to go there? Well, there's a local dance group. And I said, hey, I've just come into town. I want to dance with you guys. And then somebody else is messaging the organizer saying, I'm not sure we should, not sure we should host this guy because I heard a podcast about him. A malicious podcast that was a hit piece. And it's like, that is a permanent thing on the internet. And I've thought about suing some of these people because I've gone, this is really hurtful personally because it's not true, but it's also damaging to the business. And here's the thing is the majority of people out there aren't super far left woke. The majority of people out there just understand that a portion of their audience is, and they're scared. So there's the hardcore political minority, right? Who are a very small group of people.
It's by
very
definition,
small.
it's like 5% maximum
5%. Like they tried to organise a boycott from the conference of the speakers, and I think in the end, 20 out of 1,000 pulled out. And
or said, don't make my sessions on the replays.
Yeah, and some of them was from fear and not real from genuine. Yeah. And we get a lot of messages like, look, we know you guys aren't far right or not racist or whatever the thing is, Like, we like you guys, we know you guys, but right now it's a bit difficult to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. Which is again, that's putting like, what are the aims or where are they ranking what they want from it? Is it about their business, the money, the actual reaching more people, accessibility? Like in this world, there's a very small percentage of like the hardcore activist type. So you literally are very damaged often. They're just very traumatized, as far as to be kind. And in some cases, just plain malicious. I always said there's the good, the bad, and the broken. There's the malicious ones who do exist and are trying to self-promote and piggyback on the back of something that's more successful than they are. Usually resentfulness driven. And then there's the sort of very traumatized ones who are just hyper vigilant, which is understandable. If you've really been hurt by racism or something, you might be, hyper vigilant to that. But then there's a lot of people who are just kind of conflict averse, and they look at it and go, well, maybe it's easier just not to work with these guys. I mean, this is historically what has happened with atrocity.
Yeah, that's always what happens with
century.
atrocities.
Like, it's like most people just go along with the bad
get
things
on with their life.
Step by step.
Yeah, step by step they go along with things, and they're cowards. But it's also I understand their decision making. They're like, why should they go out on a limb? You know? So what that means is the entire industry is incredibly cautious. So the entire industry is pretending to be more far left than it is. Right? There's a lot of teachers, and I won't name names, but who are privately saying, Mark, I think this is bullshit. I completely agree with you, but they won't publicly say it. Yeah. Because they know publicly they just don't need the heat and they don't want to lose money. They go, okay, if an affiliate drops out, so we have very few attack vectors now, but when we had loads of affiliates and stuff, they could go after the affiliates rather than us.
Yeah.
And damage gets done. Like just this weekend, I wrote a Facebook post which was about decadence and had nothing to do with ethnicity. And someone messaged 40 people on Facebook saying I was a white supremacist. Now, I messaged that person immediately saying, I will sue you for this because a white supremacist means this, this, and this. And far right means this, this, and this. And I'm none of those things. And in this case, they actually backed down. But what they didn't do was message those 40 people who they'd already messaged.
Some of whom had responded back, and that's helped with
Well,
her
the
back
reason
again.
that
Like,
they apologized to me was that some of them told her to go bugger off, and she realized that she was,
she
jumping.
was wrong.
Yeah, she realized she was in the wrong. But it's like that's a normal thing. It was just on a Sunday. I don't need this. Life's
out for
quite tough
coffee
right
and
now.
suddenly
Yeah,
it's like,
just having a coffee. That I see this Facebook. It's one of my because I knew because one of the people she messaged was a friend and said, "What the hell is this?" Now I could sue her for damages for slander, and one of these days I feel like I just should because it's like she's just got away with that.
just making shit up.
Just made some shit up, told 40 people, some of whom are teachers who may never work with us again, and even, and she hasn't sent a message to them all saying, actually, apologize. She apologized to me, but she didn't send a message to those 40 people, right? So I go, and that's a small case, and it's not the end of the world, right? But I get why teachers in this space are scared of this kind of activism, which is really terrorism, because they go, I don't want my business damaged, right? And they know that their percentage is on the line. Now, most of them are rich enough at a certain scale that it's like, actually, it's just greed that they won't even stand up for their friends kind of thing. But this is something that's in the industry. Though I'm wondering if there's a sea change in this now, because I think 3 years ago, cancel culture was at a height. Now, like people telling this girl to bugger off at the weekend, I wonder if people have just sort of had enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, this happens sort of differently in different places as well, depending upon how long it's going on for and how sick people are of it.
Yeah.
Like,
what I realise is if somebody messages you and says, "Hey, Steve, you should know that John is a hamster fucker," right? Now you go, "What? So you think badly of John, but you
if
also
that was the first time I heard it,
right?
like,
but even if it was the fifth time you heard it, it's even worse in a way, right?
Yeah.
But then it's also bad because it's bad for me because you go, okay, Mark's the kind of person who reports his friends, who tells stories, who spreads gossip, who slanders people. So what's interesting is I think a lot of the people who were quite cancel culture orientated gradually got isolated because people went, you know what, I'm going to be civil to this person.
Yeah.
But actually that person got crossed off their Christmas card list.
And
they went, you know what, I don't want to be around that person.
And there's two pieces there as well. One is that, like, it's like, if you're friends with this person, they're doing that to their friends, you're like, well, what's this person going to do to me if I misstep or do something? And the other part is, there's only so many people you can hear are a hamster fucker before you go, maybe this person's just making shit up or seeing, like, jumping at shadows. Because, like, everyone isn't this.
Everyone's a racist.
Like,
everyone. There's a supply and demand problem, isn't there, in the industry? Because it's like, I'm basically a centrist. I'm a little bit conservative on some things, a little bit liberal on others. But I'm the most right they can find because most people are on the left, right? So it's like they really want someone that can be the persecutor so they can feel righteous. They can be the little victim triangle. They can be the savior and the rescuer. They need people to save who are like the poor people of wherever. So there's a supply and demand issue because there aren't any real Nazis in our field. It's just I've never met like a racist, fundamentalist, right wing.
I mean,
it's just not.
Doesn't even really make sense in a way because the whole field is connection and community and different pieces like this.
Would be a bit odd, wouldn't it? Would be a bit odd.
Excluding. Exclusionary.
Yeah. So the industry's been running terrorized by these few people, and I kind of feel like in the end a lot of them sort of get their karma anyway. Like I won't name names, but someone did a big thing on us, and then 6 months later, there was a open letter hit piece on them, and they were accused of a way worse thing, like way worse, like criminal stuff they were accused of. And I went, I don't know the truth of it, but I went, you live by the takedown, you die by the takedown. That's the world they're in. And you can never be pure enough, right? Sooner or later, you're going to make a joke, you're going to say something you shouldn't.
Someone's going to take something out of context from a 1 hour clip like this and
right,
suddenly
right.
go, these guys.
Mix it up. Yeah. Don't do that. Okay? So in some ways, what goes around comes around, and people start to get a reputation. Like I heard one of the people that did a thing against us, I heard a really senior yoga teacher go, that guy's a professional asshole. Professionally just being an ass to people. And you can see it's like, okay, this guy's not getting invited to the yoga conference in wherever I won't name the city, but a major one, and it was like, okay, so it's sort of like people realise these people are vicious, as it were. There's a viciousness, isn't there, to that subculture, and I think we've passed the worst of that. So yeah, in terms of the corruption, I think the other two main kinds. One is just greed, right? One is just the money. The celebrities are the ones that get the big that people go for.
I mean, this happens in all industries. It's
all
like
industries.
even like something like Spotify that was meant to,
Yeah.
even it out, give everyone opportunity. It just made it more extreme.
There's a
because the most
clustering.
extreme, like everyone sees the thing, it just spirals.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it doesn't mean you can't make a living. Like we still do a good embodiment coach training that has a couple of hundred people on it and earns a decent amount of money. We do that every year, and we've got that niche, and we're known for that. And we niche differently. Our only major competitors are Californian. They've got a very different vibe, so you can niche in having a slightly different personality. But I think it does lean everyone in the industry to be much safer. I won't say who, but a major provider recently, I was going to do a course with them, and they're just like, well, you're a bit dangerous. You're a little bit dangerous for us to work with. And then first of all, they said, we want something different. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty different, and I'm good at what I do. I've done it a long time. But you could see them go, oh, different, but not anything that's going to get one email of complaint.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes I feel like saying, what are you
swearing,
scared of exactly? You get one email of complaint. There was a major partner, wasn't it, that was doing an affiliate thing with us. And they literally got one of their students came to us for an affiliate event, and they bought a product from us that had swearing in the title. It was called, what was it?
Well, that was like taking no shit.
How to take no shit. It was a confidence thing.
Be an ethical asshole or something.
Yeah, how to take no shit. And then they complained, not just to us that there was swearing in the thing they bought, but they complained to the person who the affiliate came through, and then we would never do an affiliate with them ever again, and they wanted all their content taking off the website. And I just remember thinking, really? From one email? Like, there's always going to be one person. And what that means is all those people are boring. All of those people are absolutely dull in what they teach and how they teach, because they're terrified of making that one email or that 5 emails. They're terrified of it. So it just limits any kind of creativity, and it limits any really original speakers that they can be involved with, right? Because everyone has to be the same lukewarm water.
And in some sense, limits, in a sort of different style, limits the number of people who maybe would be drawn to this work for good reasons, because they can it doesn't really call to them. There's a different culture there that doesn't feel doesn't actually call to them. It's like that's not me, and someone who could benefit just doesn't, because there's nothing there.
Right. There's nothing for them because it has to have a certain vapid flavour. Is usually the
vanilla
way.
Californian
Californian
style.
vanilla, baby boomer, speak softly. Or there's a few versions, right? Or it could be the American, pumping like Tony Robbins style. Yeah, you could do it. Follow your dreams. So there's a couple of styles that are acceptable, right? But there's not many. And it does limit because of the sort of whole thing with affiliates and with people just saying, no, you can't come and work for us. It's too much of a risk. I think people that are better than me at playing the game have made a lot. I would have made a lot more money, and I'd be better at playing the game. But you can still make a living. I don't want anyone listening to be totally disheartened, right? Like we've still got a company, and we still do courses that are good, and people come to those
enjoy
courses,
ourselves as well.
Have a nice time doing it.
Yeah.
So it's and I guess we've got a sort of niche, and people know us for that. So in terms of the type of corruption, then. There's the woke thing, which is mostly just people being cowardly and not wanting to say what they actually think. And there's one more area, I think, we should talk about here, which is bullshit. A lot of personal growth sounds good. So I call this mimetic learning. So learning happens on different levels, right? And one level would be you know about something, get new information. Another level is you can do something different. Like when we're trying to teach embodied coaching, we're trying to convey a skill. Another level would be the being level, even higher level, like you're transforming genuinely, again, deep embodiment level. But there's a shallowest level, is it sounds good. If I say the essence of female leadership is vulnerability, okay? Everyone goes, oh my God, that's so good. Yeah. Right? I'm just making up some bullshit. Or something about trauma or something about attachment. And it doesn't actually teach you anything. You certainly can't do anything new. And it just slots into your brain into an existing thing. That's what a lot of the personal growth stuff is. I say it's quantum neuroscience. It's a bit of Buddhism, and the Buddha said, and it's just masturbating your brain.
Mental masturbation. This is what it's all
mental
about.
masturbation.
And it's not new to this industry either. It's so much fucking easier to listen to something and sort of learn it up here and not actually change anything. I've fucking done it before. It's I'm not saying
it's chill. It's entertainment. It's sort of like
as
TV
long as you know you're doing
it
this as entertainment. I'm just reading this fucking book and not doing the exercises or something.
Right.
But when it becomes
And
you
it's
know.
the same old ideas. Like there was a pretty famous guy in this field, and I said, "Oh, do the Chat GPTs. What are his actual theories?" And they were just the things you would have predicted. Nothing new, nothing original, no personal, research on it. No sense of anything breakthrough. Just the same old stuff, but presented in a sort of saccharine container that sounds nice. And then people can spend money on that, not really change, not really learn anything, but they kind of feel good, right?
Yeah.
And that is a huge part of the personal growth. Where is the growth? Would be, what can you do that you couldn't used to do?
And it's not without its merits making someone feel better, but at the same time, it's not necessarily getting to the core of what is actually going to make a difference in their life.
Is it going to make a difference in their life? Is it going to really help them? So
it's funny you mentioned the ChatGPT thing as well, because I've come to notice looking on different people. Again, I won't say people's names, but seeing people's different emails or seeing their pages for courses or something like that. Like suddenly, I've just come to realise that if I just type this topic in ChatGPT, it will pretty much give me.
It sounds like their sales pages.
I'm like, have these people had ChatGPT for 3 or 4 years just because it sounds, or is it just because the industry's become so homogenised and ChatGPT is from a similar region to where this is that everything fucking sounds like it's written by ChatGPT and has for years.
Wow.
Wow. And when I ask, sometimes I put our stuff in there and be like, oh, can you help me adapt this or improve it or add some jokes in? And ChatGPT, same culture thing. Oh no, I don't do rude jokes. It will refuse my
It will
requests.
tell you a joke about men, but not a joke about women. For example. ChatGPT is definitely from that same cultural bias. Okay, so in terms of looking at the industry then, so what have we said? It's all about your email list. It's all about who you know, same old stuff. I mean, yes, people are using sales techniques, things like scarcity, and, we use these, I hope, ethically. We quite like the give something free and then upsell to a course. That's a pretty classic in the industry, but it doesn't have to be, if the free thing's genuinely good.
Yeah, and also generally does help us for live events or different things like that, having an early bird thing, because we know whether the event or the course can actually take place.
Will it actually happen?
So it's like these people that help us confirm it get a cheaper price.
Yeah.
So there is actually reasons for it.
What would be worth knowing for someone out there who's struggling? There's a lot of people in this industry who are pretty good at what they do. I mean, one is just learn some basic marketing skills, right? You can learn, Tad Hargreave, George Cow, there's marketing people we recommend who are ethical. We do a course on it as well. There's us, Tad and George, there's 3. And that's just helpful to know a little. You don't have to be an expert. You weren't a marketing executive before you
just made shit up as I went along.
Just making jokes and doing stuff, and then you see what works. Then you go, okay, this kind of works. And there is always that temptation of oh, this works, but it's not entirely true, or this works, but it's not really us.
Yeah, and sometimes we feel like it feels bad when you're getting close to that line. You're like, we need.
It's a felt sense, isn't it? And we go, let's not. This feels inauthentic.
Particularly if we're like, oh, money's a bit tight this month. Yeah. It's tempting to try and say something or add something that's maybe not quite true, and that's one, that's not going to work as a business model long term, and 2, it just doesn't feel good and isn't in line with our ethical principles.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and let's say, actually the margins are quite small. Like we just get by. Sometimes people think it's millionaire mark. I mean, the conference did well, but since then, we get by. We're doing okay, but it's the difficult months. Summer's a difficult time for an online company, and I suspect that's true of most people, except for a very small percentage who are either very lucky, very good at marketing, or in some cases genuinely very good, and that's why they're trending. But less of those third ones, unfortunately. And then there's that very small group who are just raking it in. And then even to the sort of medium group who look pretty successful. We know a lot of teachers who people would say, oh, top conscious dance teacher, one of my friends, top meditation teacher, really talented and just about to go bankrupt. It's it's really difficult as an industry. I certainly wouldn't recommend it as a way to make money.
Yeah.
This industry, if you were only money motivated, I'd say there's better industries to be in, right? It's not that easy to sell an online course. It's not that easy to fill up a workshop. I'm known for what I do. I'm generally regarded as one of the best in the world at training embodiment for coaches. And I may or may not fill up a workshop, right? We had some that filled up this year, like Berlin, Zurich, Amsterdam, and then others we had to cancel.
Yeah,
right.
Very few people on this. And
what happened? And sometimes it's the date. You never really know as well, do you? Was it the date? Was it the venue? Was it the topic? Was it was it? Should it have been
Just
2
the
days
timing,
and
it
not
was in
one
summer,
day?
or
Yeah.
like, yeah.
There's a lot of that trial and error.
Yeah.
And I can be one day in a room full of people going, "Oh, this did amazing," and the next day, just no one there going, "Oh, okay, it's a bit disheartening." But I don't know. In terms of the industry, social media, we could talk about. We use social media a lot for sort of finding stuff out, like talking to our audience, figuring out names of stuff. Personally, we've never made a huge sales tool out of it.
Yeah, I mean, building an audience back at the conference time, it was very useful. That was kind of the golden age of Facebook ads as well, 2020.
Yeah,
And
there
since
was
then
the
it's not.
economics of it was different,
Yeah.
wasn't it, in terms of what you could buy for an ad.
But even that's a similar culture to this whole thing we're talking about as well.
So just keep my eye on time. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I mean, the other thing with Instagram is like someone can blow up on Instagram with a gimmick. Like I've had people on the podcast who are huge, 5 times bigger than me, 10 times bigger than me on Instagram, and they just blew up because they had a real gimmick. I don't want to say specific things because I don't want to incriminate specific people, but it can be something really small or really simple or and a lot of them weren't that great when I got them on the podcast. There's exceptions to that, but a lot of them I got on the podcast and went, kind of disappointing, just because they had a very gimmicky thing, or they just learned to do really cool videos in a particular way, or they had a girlfriend or a boyfriend who could do really cool videos,
Or they have a great 50-minute spiel which is repeated on every single
Right.
podcast. Or
Right.
they have a great persona that isn't, like we saw this on the conference as well, like a public-facing persona is
Yeah.
not necessarily who they are behind closed
Well,
doors.
that's what we've seen, haven't it?
Right.
We've seen there are people like, I don't know, Baselli or Porges who are a nice guy on camera and a nice guy off
Yeah,
camera.
just great
I
people.
just give two actual names because they're good examples, just to be clear.
And there are more as well.
There are
There's
more,
others.
but they're nice people. Like Kathleen's how she is on camera and off, right? Baselli, whatever. And then there's others who were just mean off camera, or who just like really money grabbing or really odd, and we were just like, what the fuck? Like kind of naively disappointed.
Yeah, suddenly like, here's my smile.
Yeah. And there's definitely, particularly the Americans, definitely some of them really orientate to how famous are you. Like there was people that returned my calls during the conference, wanted to be my best buddies, and then a year later when I was, my star had risen and then gone down a fair bit, and now it's kind of leveled out in the middle. Like they don't return my messages anymore because I'm not famous enough for them. And particularly the Americans, it's like, who's famous? Who's an influencer kind of thing. And it's not an assessment of character, it's literally just how famous you are, which is sort of weird.
And this is where playing the game works for some people, and they're very much just focusing on, the top, like the 80-20, they're playing the game. And
who do they want to know? And then I guess what's also I've seen is that, like, we've had quite a stressful time of it running this company and doing big courses, and the people I'm most jealous of, that's not even the word, that I respect, who I want their life, are people that just have quietly done a thing and got a good name for it. Or like, Martin Aylward runs a nice retreat centre, does good meditation courses. He's got a book out, but he just quite gets on with his life. He raises his kids, he runs his retreat centre, and he's just comfortable and pleasant and has a nice life, And it's like, maybe he's not like global megastar, but he's respected in his work, And then, or they've got a conscious dance list, and it's only a small list, but people turn up to their courses and they just like their lives.
Yeah.
Like I'd say, if you're trying to get big and you're watching this video, like, what's the story? I'd say a lot of it's not that much fun, like having fucking cancel culture attacks on a Sunday when you're just trying to have a coffee and an ice cream and this thing's coming in. Or, being recognised. I get recognised about once a week now for the conference and other things. And that is sort of nice. It's mostly people are friendly, I just want to say thanks. Oh, cool, say hi, shake the hand. But you feel watched. There's a feeling of like you're never quite... Like if I go to yoga or a retreat or a dance class, I just want to dance.
you
or do
can't
yoga.
relax and
You
just
can't
be yourself.
totally
and-
relax because there's always a bit of an eye on you. Or
And even if they don't expressly say that they know you, then maybe people know you when they're looking for things for the opposite reason. For like, this is this guy, like, let's try and find some dirt.
Yeah. So it's like... Now, it's not too bad. I don't want to complain too much. But like, certainly if there's a scale of fame of 1 to 100 and I went from a 1 to a 2, and I don't know, the top famous meditation teacher in America is a 5 or a 10, because they're still not Johnny Depp, right? They're not Brad Pitt or Queen. So it's like, okay, I wouldn't recommend going beyond a 2. Maybe a 3. Like, even though I don't want that. Like, I genuinely wouldn't want that level of being recognised or known. you become a target at that point, you know. And also there's an inflation of ego that comes with it that I had to kind of, I had a sort of about a year where I was quite inflated after the conference. Was I a total dick, Steve? You can more than normal.
I mean, as an Australian, we all are, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, Australians are good to be around when you're being a bit egoic because they say "G'day, cunt." But it's that was we got to cut that out. No, fuck it, we're well into the video, so it won't get demonetized. So yeah, like there's that bit where you get a bit inflated, and that's not. Imagine you're a new yoga teacher, and you've never been popular with women, and all of a sudden you're doing retreats in Bali full of like hot Russian girls telling you you're amazing. Like it's gonna go your head.
Yeah, and whether it from that thing or just being sort of like caricatured or projected upon, like becoming a caricature to people, like
caricature.
Yeah.
Okay, is that an Australianism?
Apparently, or maybe I just fucking read a book and made it up in my head when I was dying.
Caricature. I think I could maybe it's an Englishism. All right, never mind. Yeah, I mean, you do sort of you can end up
projections.
You can become the projection, and sometimes if the projection is you're a bad guy, it's pretty painful. But even if it's like you're a good guy, they've got a certain limited picture of who you are, right? You're the funny guy, you're the provocative guy, you're the wise one, whatever it is. Like that's not so easy, and I'd say that creates a lot of these in the industry, a lot of characters that aren't so easy to deal with because in their world they're a legend.
Yeah,
you can be like the top boy in conscious dance in France, and everyone knows who you are, and you walk around like you're Billy Big Balls
in your small world.
In conscious dance in France or Belgium improv or whatever that is, or even meditation in America. It's still not that big, So that's and I think that can really inflate people, and I've had that happen to myself. But we've dealt with some egos, haven't we, in terms of like conference organising and like what. Let's finish with this. What's some of the biggest dick moves we've seen from people we've worked with? Because we've hosted everyone. 300. How many podcasts is it now? Fucking
over 500.
Over 500. How many speakers at events have we had? Must be like 1,000, 300.
Yeah,
like well over 1,000. What are some of the biggest dick moves? People just being rude to members of the team. Don't like that.
Yeah, I remember one very particular one just being an absolute fucking dick, like right before and right after. This is the one that sticks in my head, like the face flip. Like it's just like, and we said after that we're never having this person
we just went,
on
we're
again.
not. We don't care how much money we'll make. We're not working with them. We don't want them at events. Being rude to staff. People being a bit diva-ish sometimes. But it's not too bad, is it? It's not too bad.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a ton of things, but I can't.
Without naming names as well is another one. Okay, so that's our how does personal growth industry really work? Everything you wanted to know behind the scenes. Anything going to get us in trouble there? What do you reckon?
No, just the fact we're two white men is
going to get us in trouble. Sorry, but that's the issue. All right, so anything finish up? All good?
No, I think we've covered most things. I'm sure.
Buy our fucking courses. I think maybe there's something interesting for people because people do often ask me like what are they like and how is it to do that, and I can see people don't always get the reality of it, which is like the affiliates and stuff like that that's going on, and who gets pushed. Why such and such a speaker is being given such and such a stage, and is it about quality or is it something else? And sadly, it's often about something else. Is my sense. Finish on a positive note though. What I've seen is if someone loves their work, they're consistent over years at being generous to people in how they do it, and they get a little bit of marketing skill. Like there's still the place that you could make a living.
Yeah.
As a coach or yoga teacher or as a personal growth speaker or whatever, there are still those people who they just consistently rock up, be nice to people, ethical, do a good job and piss off home. And those people can make a living. Like it's not impossible, despite I don't want anyone to listen to this and just feel really discouraged by some of the things.
Yeah. And at the end of the day as well, it's just kind of basic stuff as well. It's like listening to your people, only taking on what you can actually do, what you're competent in.
Yeah.
Like sort of developing over time consistently. Like,
I mean, that's a mistake we made, was doing things that weren't quite our core offer, like the embodiment coaching, going into other things that weren't a core offer.
Yeah.
Or even trying to promote other speakers, which I thought would be great, like awesome people, like there was Patricia, Christine, Masha, but they didn't know them.
Yeah, it's like if you build a platform for you, it takes a lot of time to then kind of start transitioning or showing other people.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Unless you've got a huge platform like Sounds True,
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
where that's their thing. They
where the
host
thing
different
is lots of people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like Tammy's the main thing on there. Yeah, so it's like that. Knowing, sticking with what you're actually good at is kind of a key thing. But then the thing is just getting caught in a rut. I don't know. We're just fucking rambling. If something's useful for that, then take it. And if not, then yeah. Well,
Then don't.
what's that?
Then just don't take
Then
it.
don't.
Just
I'm not making any sense anymore. Steve, fucking cheers. Got some shrimps to put on the barbie. All good now, yeah?
yeah, no.
Yeah. No, they don't. Australians don't do that. They don't do that.